What's up, guys? Welcome into the Gramlich and Mac Lain podcast. It is great to see everybody, and you're probably not used to me starting off the episode, especially alone here, because usually it's our girl KG. But I have great news. She had her baby boy. He is beautiful, little baby Luke, and KG and baby are doing great, and we're so excited for them. Thank you guys for the prayers and everything that you did, because I know you all knew that was coming up, and we're super excited about that. I'm also excited that we've got a new guest host, and Taylor Tannenbaum. Welcome to the party. Let's go.
I'm so happy to be here. First and foremost, I'm happy we have a new member of the ACC Network family in Luke. That was the first time I heard his name. I hadn't even
There you
asked
go.
that yet.
Sorry. Hey, KG, sorry if that was top secret. My bad.
It's not. Congratulations, KG and family. I'm so happy for her. Now a boy mom of 2, which is incredible. And I'm just happy to be here with you. It's like almost like I just saw you like 24 hours ago because I did. Crazy.
That'll be the fun part for us for this month or however long KG wants to do it. And first of all, very grateful for you. Thank you for filling in.
Please.
I did not want to just sit here and stare at a computer screen by myself. So
Let me
thank
be
you.
very clear. This is for Kelly, not for you.
Okay, perfect. That's even better. That's even better. And I appreciate that. But this is going to be fun. I'm excited to have you with us. I got to play host, let's see, for 90 seconds there, which is always my dream. Now I'm giving it back over to you. So you're going to take us through this. Again, who knows? It might be a month. It might be a couple weeks, whatever. You're always welcome on the show after that. You can always come back. But you're doubling down on your host duties. And thank you for joining us. Not so great weekend in the ACC. We had a great week 1, and we thought we'd have a good week 2. It's a little depressing.
EMAC, look, we've talked so much about opportunity, right? And the narrative for the league. And coming off week 1, it was outstanding. The league overall went 12-4. The 4 losses were all to Power 4 teams. 3 of them were ranked in the top 25. So you're feeling pretty good. And everyone was relatively competitive, even in loss. And then you come into this week 2, another 6 opportunities against Power 4 non-conference opponents, one of them being Virginia, NC State, which we'll get to. So it was non-conference, even though we were guaranteed a win for the conference because they were playing each other. And the league went 1-5. The only win was the fact that NC State pulled it out against Virginia. It's not ideal. I will say, though, because we always love to put a positive spin on things, there were positive things to take away. Outside of, I would say, like Stanford losing big to BYU and Virginia Tech, which we're obviously going to talk about on the show, losing to Vanderbilt. But there were some things that you left feeling like they were winnable games and maybe better luck next week.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. We'll see. Maybe. I don't know. I'm sick. Like, it was so, and I'm going to peel back the curtain because this is going to be fun. Because again, you and I are with each other all day on Saturday. There was a moment, it was probably 2 p.m. And we're like, this is awesome. SMU was whipping Baylor. Duke was down 1 to Illinois. Clemson hadn't played yet. And there was something else. I can't remember. That was NC State and Virginia. It was a great game. Back and forth. Like, whatever. It's all good. Handling West Michigan. Florida. And we're like, this is we're stacking.
Sorry, I'll take the blame for that one. Did I speak that into like non-existent?
Maybe we cursed it. We can't have nice things. The bottom line, we can't have nice things.
And there was a point actually when we were having that conversation and you were like, and then it's going to get to tonight at 7:00 and we're talking about something Clemson going wrong. And this is you, Mr. Clemson, ultimate optimist when it comes to your alma mater. And to be honest, we can start there, EMAC, because look, we are talking today about a Clemson win. And that is great news because as they should beat the Troy Trojans, who, granted, is a great Sun Belt Conference team. But Clemson is the superior opponent. They have the better roster. They are at home in Death Valley, trying to bounce back after a 7-point loss to LSU, right? They do go on to win 27-16 over Troy. But it was 16-3 Trojans at halftime. Like, if you had to like wipe your eyes and be like, is the graphics operator like backwards?
Right.
Because it was a slow start for the Tigers. Once again, I know weather played a factor, but Troy had to deal with weather too. They had to deal with a delay. They had a worse locker room than Clemson certainly does on the road. What was your feeling at halftime? I'm curious because you look at that. Even though they eked out a win, what did you feel at halftime?
Yeah, halftime, I was like, Coach Sweeney was really onto something in his press conference when he said, all y'all suck, because it's true. And I'm just sitting here like, this is impossible. And you know what it felt like? And I know this will hit home with you because you were heavily involved with the network still. It felt like 2023. It felt like Clemson can't do anything right. It's like little momentum. They're driving. They have a 3rd and short or 4th and short. They get it. Oh my God, the ball's flying through the air. There's a fumble. It's going the other way. What is happening? And then they score. And then they're backed up to their own goal line. Cade's thrown out of his end zone. The ball gets tipped straight in the air and it lands in a defensive guy's lap in the end zone. And I'm just sitting here like, this is not happening. How is this happening? It looks terrible. First drive is a 3-and-out by Clemson. So there's like, we're sitting with this not good feeling about the offense for an entire week, for really an entire half of football, an entire week. And then the first thing that we see is bad play, bad read. And you're just like, oh my gosh, why? How? What is going on? And it makes no sense. And it still doesn't, because you have such a veteran quarterback that made unbelievable strides last year. You have a super deep, talented wide receiver room, a veteran offensive line. And it's like those 3 things that we virtually can guarantee is going to be better with an off season, another year together, are some of the weaknesses of the team, actually the weaknesses of the team. And it's just not hitting and it's not happening. And it's so frustrating. And some of that's play calling. I think the play calling, the second half was better. Okay. They executed better. It's just super blah and not inspiring. Players not executing. Cade, there's guys screaming wide open and it's just, he's not getting the ball to them. And it looks like the first reason, I'm not a quarterback. I don't know, but it doesn't look like it's a major issue with guys being open. And then he's throwing late and he's getting guys hurt. And it's just like, what is going on? It is a disaster. And then the second half starts. The defense picks it up huge. 3 turnovers they forced, 3 picks. Cade's throwing deep balls. Adam Randall's running. He gets over 100 yards. Bryant Wesco steps up immensely, has over 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns. And Cade's super accurate in the second half. So it's like you kind of let out like a half sigh relief, not a full sigh, a half sigh. And you're like, okay, something to grow on.
It's
Maybe.
there. It's there. And that's what it is to me is you don't have a lot of time now for it to be there. Next week is Georgia Tech. And so I don't know how they're feeling internally in the locker room, but now it's incumbent to me on the players. Like, I know you mentioned play calling and it's a little bit uninspiring, and I would agree with that. And certainly the coaches have to speak up. But at this point forward, and I think maybe in that second half you saw it, and Dabo Swinney hinted at it last week, like when 2 doesn't play good, when our best players don't play good, we ain't winning this football game. And you saw the players finally step up and take a little bit of ownership, I felt like, in that second half. Like, I felt like Cade finally looked like the Cade that we expect him to be. Bryant Wesco, who, keep in mind, they're playing without Antonio Williams, their leading receiver from last year. Their veteran guy in that room, he's dealing with a hamstring injury. He's still just a sophomore. He's still just a baby. Like, he stepped up when the moment felt like it was big. And I think that was a turning point. We talked about that yesterday. Maybe the positive side of Antonio being out is it's going to force other guys to step up. And Adam Randall,
and, we'll see. We'll see. We at least saw it in the second half. And Adam Randall, that is somewhat play calling. Like, give the guy the football. And when you did, you saw some good things. He went for 112 yards and a touchdown, just shy of 5.5 yards per carry. Like, they need a run game or else it turns one-dimensional. Then Cade's back there fighting for his life. And I know health is certainly going to be a thing for them moving forward. Tristan Lee was seen in a walking boot. Their left tackle didn't play in the game. I don't know what his status will be for Georgia Tech. Walker Parks has been dealing with an injury, and hopefully he's getting healthier. But, all of that sort of comes together. I don't know how to feel about Clemson at this point, but I do know I feel like they cannot play this way when they head to the Flats next week. No, or you'll get embarrassed. You'll get embarrassed, and it won't be fun. And I think you bring up the offensive line there. I've been really kind of just shocked, by that and like getting whipped by Troy. Guys getting thrown to the ground, giving up tackles for loss, double teams getting split very easily. And this is also in the LSU game, which was significantly better talent. So we would think not being able to get to the second level, guys running free. It's just a weird cluster, and you better get it right. You better get it right, because there's some really good teams that you're going to face, specifically one in Tallahassee. If we want to go ahead and move on there, I'm going to totally get out of the way. And please, 77-point queen, the Noles are back. Go ahead and do what you may.
I feel like I need to pull up some of the statistics that came out of last night, because it was crazy. 29 yards, most yards from scrimmage in a game since 2000, which was against Clemson. Most points scored in the Mike Norvell era. 6 passing touchdowns, most in a game since 2011. They scored on 10 straight drives to open the game. 9 different dudes scored a touchdown. This is not your 2024 Florida State Seminoles. This is a team that is playing with a purpose, EMAC. And that might be a little contrary to what we're seeing from Clemson. Maybe they expected to just be riding the wave this year. Florida State looked in the mirror last year, ton of new players, but a lot of guys who went through it last year too, including the guy at the top and Mike Norvell. And they said, look, we're putting that in the rearview mirror. And I was wondering, how does a team with some new faces, some guys who experienced adversity last year, respond to such a great win over Alabama? You can ride that win for as long as you want. They rode it till Sunday and clearly turned the page. Like they turned the page to East Texas A&M when they are the far superior opponent. It did not matter. They did not take their foot off the gas. They got everybody involved. Second, third stringers even got a ton of playing time. And you saw maybe a little bit of what the future could look like with Kevin Sperry at quarterback a little bit later. And Javon Boggs catching passes out there from Sperry. I don't know. But you're seeing an inspired football team. And that is all that I was hoping for coming into this season, is you wanted it to at least look different. I didn't know what the final result of ball games would look like, but you wanted to see the defense fight, fly to the football. You wanted to see the offense score points, even find the end zone at least maybe a couple of times a game as opposed to just once every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that. You're
Right.
seeing a team play together as a unit. And this is a team now at this point. I've seen what I've seen for the first 2 weeks. This is not an anomaly. Alabama was not an anomaly.
Correct.
Them dominating East Texas A&M was not just because they were the better football team. This is a great not just a good, this is a great football team.
Come on.
Great coaching. And that's the key. Tony White has done wonders with a new scheme, and the way he just has them playing ball different. Gus Malzahn is utilizing every single weapon he has at his disposal. And Mike Norvell has the capability now to just run a team. It's so obvious.
Yeah. And I think the super obvious point, but the fact that this wasn't your first game, that this is coming off of beating down Alabama, a top 10 Alabama, it only heightens and further justifies all those thoughts that you just said about this team. It would be one thing if we saw them do this against East Texas A&M and then Bethune or whoever they play next, whatever that looks. That would be like, okay, I'm excited. You have my attention. But no, you did it against Alabama the same way, dominating up front, running the heck out of the football, shutting down the run. And it is so obvious that this team is night and day different just because of a quarterback like Tommy is. It's fun to watch. Let me just say that. And then B, the lines of scrimmage, and then C, the fight and the dog, that you see from these guys hitting, laughing at you after they hit you, like bullying you and liking it. And that's the Noles that I played against. That's the Noles back in the 90s when they're winning championships and in the top 5 for a billion straight years. That's what we're used to seeing. The 2023 Florida State team, that's what we're used to seeing. And so I love it. And I think that there's a little bit of a I'm about to show you mentality. I think there's a little bit of we're not taking the foot off the gas. And they relatively did that in the fourth quarter because of respect.
80 points was the school record, and they stopped at 77.
They stopped. That's the point. So they did relatively call off the dogs, but 21 points, 28 points, 21 points in the first 3 quarters, by quarter there, I was floored. And I thought too, I thought the run game was impressive, and that's what Gus does, right? Like he can get it going. But then the additional piece of coach, through the air and being able to push those things downfield, that's where kind of Norvell morphs into it as well. And we saw that. And I thought we would. I thought there was another level of this offense and seeing Deuce, which, man, we just wanted to see him run. And we did. We got to see that. He has these Randy Moss type numbers to start the game where you're just looking like this is it. This is elite. And so I still think this team can get better, which is crazy to think. I think this team's going to get closer together as the team goes on, as the season goes on. And I think they are all the way for real. This team needs to be in the top 10 today. We need to get it going. And again, you need to what people need to forget about is last year. You need to just look at this season right here. Who is this team? Who are they? They're a top 10 team. They're a really freaking good football.
They're a team nobody wants to play. And before we move on from it, because you just mentioned Deuce Robinson, by the way, here's another stat for you. He had 4 catches, 160 yards in the first quarter, most receiving yards by a Florida State player in a quarter in program history. There have been so many greats that have come through this program, and I understand it was East Texas A&M, and you can underscore that. I don't care. But The last point I'll make is last year this team lacked leadership, and it
Correct.
was very obvious, and I just mentioned it about Clemson, like, it's time for the players to take some accountability here. These Florida State players have, like, Tommy speaking in the summer, he wasn't doing that to be a jerk. He wasn't doing that to be pompous. He was doing that to pump up his guys and show them, like, "I have your back if you have mine." And that's clearly played positively here. But even defensively, Earl Little Jr., who's a guy who's been through the trenches last year, had a tough year, changed positions. He had an interception yesterday. Jerry Wilson comes over from Houston and that defensive backfield, and he has stepped up massively as a leader on that side of the ball. He had an interception. Like you are seeing, like you did in 2023 with Jared Verse and some of these guys and Jordan Travis offensively, who were the leaders, take ownership of this team. You're seeing that here. And I think that's truly the numbers can do all the talking you want, but that's the biggest difference is you have guys who are willing to stand up in that locker room and say, I'm going to lead you to the promised land, follow me, and we all have each other's back. And I think that's really, really special.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
different.
with it. I'm with it. Speaking of the state of Florida, it's just balling right now because the hurricanes are rolling too. Some of them. Some
Some
of
of
them.
some of them.
Talking about USF, USF doing really well too. So
And
it's great that the strong and the pride of Florida is doing their best, right?
no, you're right. You're right. The pride of Florida, including the South Florida Bulls, apparently, which, to be fair, is the next upcoming opponent for the Miami Hurricanes.
Better lock in.
What we're talking about is USF is 2-0 on the season because they just knocked off a ranked Florida team in Gainesville. So this team is no joke. We will get to that, of course, a little bit later and later in the week. But Miami Hurricanes, 45-3 win over Bethune-Cookman. They are the better team. They were the better team, no question about it. But again, it was you come off a win over Notre Dame. What are you going to look like at home again against Bethune-Cookman, who's going to come in there trying to fight? And it could be a slower, sleepy start. You know how the city of Miami is. It's not a massive game, so are the fans going to show up maybe a little quieter at Hard Rock Stadium? But they showed up, led by Carson Beck. And you want to talk about leadership? He completed his first 15 passes, by the way, which breaks a Miami record. It was held previously by Vinny Testaverde.
It's a little
So you had
quarterback.
Cam Ward breaking all of these Miami records last year. Here comes Carson Beck starting the game with 15 completions. And you're starting to see him be the Carson Beck we expected him to be. And what I've noticed the most, Emac, is he's having fun and his teammates around him are having fun. So you're seeing success on the football field.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think maybe that was missing for him at Georgia last year. And I think what was missing too was the offensive line. Miami has the run game that Miami has, the pass catchers that Miami does have. CJ Daniels, Malachi Tony emerging because we were wondering who was going to be their playmakers this year, and they're asserting themselves dominantly at that position. But you're starting to see a team that's having fun playing football, and that's led by their quarterback in Carson Beck.
Right. And you talk about efficiency, being able to push the ball downfield, but also knowing where to go with the ball, making the right decision, orchestrating the offense perfectly. And I get it. I know it's Bethune-Cookman. I get that. But he also did it last week, too, against Notre Dame, who's going to be a very good team, a very good defense. And I think that's what's super inspiring. And I just keep going back to the end of last year, most of the offseason. It started to change a little bit in the preseason, and everybody just clowning Carson Beck and just saying he's this and saying he's that. And I'm like, is he? Like, is he those things? Because I don't think so. Like, I think this guy has a lot of talent, and I just thought he was going to be back to his old self because he has a great offensive line. He's going to have a great run game, and he has better weapons. Everything around him is better. So he doesn't have to force the issue. He can manage the offense. He can get the ball to these great playmakers. He can throw it up to CJ Daniels, which we've seen in back-to-back weeks, and he's going to come down with it in the end zone. That's different. That's boosting your quarterback's, just momentum and confidence. That guess what? That's going through the whole team. Everybody's feeling that. Everybody's feeling like we can do this. We see it at Florida State and we see it here in Miami. And with those two being as good as they are and as good as I think they can be, that matchup in a couple weeks is going to be it's going to be back to the old days. I know it's going to make you sick, but it's going to be good for us. And let's not forget history of when those two played each other. The winner was winning the national championship. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but we're probably pretty close. And this is in a year right now that it's as tossed up as you want it to be. It's as who knows who's the elite team. I don't think anybody strikes fear into you when they walk in, and maybe some of these teams can start doing that. But it just feels like this race is so wide open. These teams capitalizing at the right time, perfect year to do it. And it's just fun to watch.
No, it's been a ton of fun to watch. And And this is when they joined the league, both of these teams. Like, this is what you were hoping for, is your big brands fighting to be at the top, fighting for national championships at the same time. It's been a struggle to do it at the same time, and you are on your path to that. But for both of these teams, for Florida State and Miami, all we wanted to see in week 2 was a continuation of what you saw in week 1. And you got that. The maturity that you need to be winning championships at the end of the season, it starts now. And that is very evidently on display. The one thing about Miami, though, I will say, I'm looking for JoJo Trader. I know he didn't play in this game. Mario Cristobal said after the game he was hurt, the wide receiver for the Canes. And granted, CJ Daniels, Malachi Tony, they have been great. But we were expecting a little more from JoJo Trader so far, and I don't know what he's dealing with. I'm hoping if they can add him to the fold, this offense could be unstoppable.
Because you need 3. You need 3, whether it's a tight end, another receiver. You just got to have that, kind of other guy that if they're having an off day or if they're showing coverage one way or the other, then you have that, and then you're unstoppable. I mean, that's what the great teams, really have. And kind of speaking about, Miami and the excitement level of them, they've got a gauntlet coming up here with USF, who is good. They're going to be ranked. They're going to be ranked really high. They're the favorite, I think, of the G5 right now to make the playoff. 2 ranked wins in a row. They have the best resume of anybody in the country when you look at the games that they've won. Went to the Swamp and really dominated. I mean, those lines of scrimmage, they dominated in the Swamp. Then they go, Florida comes to town, which, again, still rivalry. And then you go to Florida State. They're just doing the Florida World Tour right here.
And then they have a bye, and Louisville comes to town on a Friday night. If they can get through, EMAC, this chunk of the schedule,
they'll be number 1 in the country.
No question.
And then on the other side, you look at Florida State and you look at what they have, couple of decent games right there, and then they've got Miami. So it's, there's some excitement. I think we'll know probably more about the Hurricanes when they're done with that than Florida State, just because, but they also beat, I don't know. I'm excited for both. Can we just end in a tie? Can it end in like a 20 overtime tie? And, we just keep going. No losses for Miami or Florida State.
I'll take like a 50-47 ACC championship and both make the playoffs.
Okay.
Let's go. Like, yeah. I want a high-scoring, fun affair. Actually, play some defense, please.
Did you know that Ingles sells more organics than any other store? Or that they run their own dairy? Or that they only serve USDA choice and prime meat? Did you know that they have more local craft beer than any place else? Or that they have Energy Smart stores? Or that they professionally slice and package imported cheese from Europe? Did you know about their giant international aisle, local farm partnerships, curbside pickup, wine department? Or that they donate 3,956 meals a day to local food banks? Well, now you do. It's all in the bag. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
I mentioned at the top of the show, we just talked about the fact that we had 6 Power 4 non-conference games and the league went 1-5. We are very transparent here on the Gramlich and Mac Lain podcast. And the one win was NC State over Virginia.
Yes, we did it.
We did it. Either way, the ACC was going to come out on top because it was ACC on ACC crime, but it was a non-conference game because this is an old school rivalry, didn't get scheduled. So they did make it part of the scheduling, which I actually really like because the ACC only plays 8 conference games. So it added a 9th, which was actually fun. And we were entertained, man. Before the game on the ACC huddle, we were talking and you guys were saying, and Jimbo Fisher was saying, like, this could be a shootout. There's 2 quarterbacks between CJ Bailey on NC State and Chandler Morris at Virginia who can sling the ball around the yard. And that's exactly what we got. NC State, though, coming out with it after a couple of big defensive stops late. And to me, that's the takeaway. We could talk about quarterbacks all day. Kind of fun to watch. The points, hope you took the over because that most certainly hit really like in the first half. I'm pretty sure the over hit in the first half. But to me, the defense, big question mark for NC State coming in because Tony Gibson, who was their DC for years, one of the best in the business, moves on to be the head coach at Marshall. DJ Elliott comes in. What is that defense going to look like? Mm-hmm. Back-to-back weeks now, EMAC, State's defense closed the game for the Wolf.
Right.
They did it against ECU on a 4th down stop, and they intercepted the ball, on the final drive of the game when UVA was knocking on the door to take the lead.
Right. Bend, don't break, because there was a lot of bending. 257 yards of bending. I don't think anybody's walking away like, hell yeah, brother. We feel good about that. But you made the game win and play. And there's something, to that. There's something, too, when the game's on the line, got to have it. You can do it. There's a piece of that. But certainly, I don't think anybody was ecstatic. Both teams had over 220 yards, which is crazy to look at, especially when you think of just what these teams have from a quarterback situation and standpoint. And I also thought it was fascinating. It was so back and forth. all day, and then just, like, nobody wanted to score in the 4th quarter. Like, we just stopped scoring. We thought this game was gonna be in the high 50s, and then it just slammed on the brakes in the 4th. But as you mentioned, somebody had to win, and I think the one thing that Virginia fans will probably be sick about, there was a guy wide open on that pick, and he would have scored, and it just was a miss. It was a misfire, tried to force it in there, but you gotta take that because this guy's a gunslinger. Our
They're in the
boy,
game
Eddie Royal.
'cause
Yeah, yeah,
they're in the
he's
game
fun to
'cause of
watch.
yeah.
Yeah, he's fun to watch, and, Eddie loves to compare him to Brett Favre, which I see that, in the risks and in the way he throws it, and then you look on the other side with CJ Bailey, we saw him run the ball really effectively, getting in the end zone twice with his feet. That's gonna be a new wrinkle. I love what I saw from Hollywood Smothers because 'cause I've been begging and screaming and pleading, "Can we run the ball?" And we finally did it, the
The
NC
offensive
State.
lineman's begging to run the ball, that's a
I
wild
know, it's
concept.
weird. It usually doesn't happen. Usually I'm pro quarterback, as we find. I just wanna zing it, but when you've gotta have it, they were able to do it, and as you mentioned, that interception saved the day, and, you move on, you're undefeated, and you're feeling really good, about the rest of the way here, and I thought that this game would kinda be whoever wins it is set up better for the rest of the year, but Virginia played their tail off, so maybe they both can springboard off of this and, continue to climb.
And they have the easiest remaining schedule in the ACC of all the teams
Which is a
Virginia
big deal, which is a
which
big
is
deal.
huge for them. While coaches would tell you, like, "There's no moral victories," like, Virginia
Right.
should feel pretty good about themselves moving forward. Jamari Taylor's their running back. If you wanna talk Hollywood Smothers on the NC State side, which finally it feels like for years, you've been begging for the run game, and it finally came to fruition when they needed it the most. Virginia's got themselves a little running back there in Mr. Taylor, the
No question.
transfer in from North Carolina Central. So, they have pieces, they've got speed at wide receiver, and they have a defense when Cam Robinson is healthy will be significantly better. But I like both of these teams to be competitive this year, but I think it's great for NC State to be 2-0. It is one of the bigger brands, especially in this league,
Mhm.
and it can really springboard them, I feel, especially with a young quarterback in CJ Bailey.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. We talk about how sad this weekend was. It almost was made more sad by our
Almost.
friends up in the JMA Wireless Dome, but they found a way. I don't know if I've ever seen this before. Have you ever seen a team run sprints after a win? You ever seen that?
I have never seen that, and I would ask you, has that ever happened to you? Like, you played Oh,
My head coach, whether we look horrible against Troy or blow out somebody, we're dancing and celebrating in the locker room. Like
right.
that's what we do. We ain't running sprints. All right. We're not doing that. That was
So
crazy.
instead
And you know the fun fact about that, because the game was over, so there's this clock, there's this fake clock that starts. However long they were running for it, that counts against their practice time. I hope they know that, because if you go over, you're gonna get in some trouble here. So you better know what you're doing, and you better keep those hours of practicing locked in, TT,
Alright, or NCAA, whatever. Like,
because
they
they're
main
paying attention.
like, they maintain much of anything these
Hey,
days.
Syracuse ineligible for the rest of the year because they ran sprints after.
I feel like that's actually a hill they would die on. Don't you feel like the NCAA would absolutely
They
die on
would. They
that
would enforce
ridiculous
that
hill?
to the most that they could.
You couldn't be more correct about that. Hey, pay whoever, whatever, we don't really care, but
Yeah.
those sprints after
You're
practice,
done.
but after the game, but that really and Fran Brown was speaking after the game, and somebody asked him, "Why did you make your team run like gassers after the game? Like, why are you making these guys do that?" He said, "They didn't want to run during the game, so I forced them to run after." He was like laughing through his teeth. He's like, "I so want to be happy right now, but I am pissed off." And maybe that's a good thing.
I know.
Like, there needs to be some accountability. Look, UConn is actually a good G5
They are.
team.
They're a good
They
team.
like to push people to the brink, and I think Fran Brown knew that coming in, but they were down for a majority of this game and needed overtime to inevitably win it. But I thought you saw some, I'll use a Yiddish term, chutzpah, from Steve Angeli and this Syracuse team stepping up when it mattered the most. Like, we talk about in this league, like, you can lose the big games, but you cannot lose those ones you're supposed to win. And that one is one that like Syracuse can't be losing to UConn. If they're trying to build off of last year, right, EMAC? Like, just can't do it.
100%, and especially with the gauntlet of a schedule that they have. I mean, it's
Brutal.
brutal, and this is one that we thought you'd win, that you have to win, that you found a way in overtime, and, it is something you can build momentum off of. Angeli throwing it 50 plus times is crazy, but that's what they do. And then, to not be able to run the ball. Now, a big piece of that is he got sacked a bunch. And I hate that sack yards are accredited to the run total because he was minus 32. That's outrageous, in regards to the number there. So it's a little bit better, but it's still not, super efficient and effective like you'd want. But at the end of the day, you found a way. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, we thought this game was over. Like it was bad. It looked horrendous. Syracuse found a way. They come marching back, win the game. And so that's a big deal. Some of these teams, TT, not as lucky. And
No.
this is where, if you just want to stop watching, I understand. But if you want to hear about these teams, we're going to talk about them because it was unfortunate. And there were a couple instances where we thought it was going to be a superb weekend that these couple of games just ripped it away from us.
Yeah, let's start with where we were. Let's start in Durham, shall we? With Duke and Illinois. And we came into the day, it's been a really long time since Duke has beaten a ranked non-conference foe.
That's a
1971.
bit of an understatement.
Really long time, 1971, but we felt some optimism coming in because of the brand of football that Duke plays. They are a physical football team. Darian Mensah coming in at quarterback, and he's really good. Had a career day last week against Elon. What were they going to do against Illinois? One thing you can't do against a Big Ten team that is very experienced, that has talent, is beat yourself. And that's what Duke did. The stat sheet will tell you they had 5 turnovers. I would argue it was more like 6 or 7. Giving the ball back because you got called for having 2 number 8s on the field when Illinois was punting the ball away. And now it's a fresh set of downs for the Illini, and they go on and score on that drive. That to me is considered a turnover too. They had so many chances, Duke did, to keep this game close. It was a 1-point game at halftime, down 14-13. But they continually shot themselves in the foot. And they'll go back and look at that film and say, man, we had that one in the bag. And now how did they respond?
Yeah. And it's just super unfortunate because of that. You're so close and you're playing at a really high level and then you just can't finish. You can't close the door. And I thought it was so funny. It was like the most Duke response when Manny Diaz was asked about the game. He says, we were the architects of our own demise. And I'm just like, yeah, you sure were. You sure were. And everybody was involved, right? It's not like we can just point to one thing, which that's probably even more frustrating. It'd be okay if it was like, okay, we do this, we fix it, we're good. But there were defensive mess ups where guys are running in the end zone and you're kind of getting a stop and then boom, you get a PI. They move it up all the way to the 2-yard line, touchdown. There's the mishap with the jerseys, as you mentioned. There's dropping punts. There's coaches' decisions going for 2 when you did not need to go for 2. And that kind of swung some momentum in favor of Illinois, and then just not protecting the football. Darian Mensah, as great of a player as he is and really fun to watch, he has to protect that thing. He has to keep the ball 2 hands on the football, as creative in running around and extending plays. When you get hit from behind and you're swinging the ball around, it's coming out. I mean, you're not strong enough. It's just awkward, whatever. And so that put, Illinois in situations to really take advantage, and they did. I mean, it was to one point where, we're in there, we're watching a billion games at once, by the way. I'm watching something, okay, I see Illinois drive down the field, they score. I'm like, okay, it's probably getting a little out of hand. Start watching something else. I look back and Illinois is scoring again. And it had been like 2 minutes of real time. I'm like, what is going on? And it was a sack.
How does this happen?
It's like, what is happening? And so it just snowballed into this massive freaking avalanche to where I think if you really watch the game, it wasn't as bad as the score reflects, but unfortunately, 5 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, when we're stacking conferences and saying, looky here, they're just going to say, well, they got aired out by 30 points. Like, who cares? Like, the ACC is this and that. And so that's what's super unfortunate, that when you get in these big time cross conference matchups and you can't take advantage of them, it's just going to hurt us down the road. And it's going to be something where we've got to find, different stats and reasons and why this team should be here. And that's the only part of the job that I don't like.
I hate it.
That just stinks, and you have to grab and reach for something. And at the end of the day, these schools have to help us out. And that was an unfortunate way for them to end, because you thought there was some real juice there for a moment.
And I would argue 35 of Illinois' 45 points came off of Duke's turnovers. So Manny Diaz and the team will go back to the drawing board. They're going to watch film today, tomorrow, the next day, and they're going to say, we beat ourselves. Don't do this again. And if you don't, we can have a very successful season, another 9-win season potentially, like they have been the last couple of years. The one thing I will say, though, is they gave away the football, obviously, entirely too much. The defense has no takeaways on the season. Like, that turnover margin is really, really skewed right now. And this is a defense that'll get after you. And they can turn you over. They've got to get back to that. And it's certainly led by Chandler Rivers, who has done a ton of great things already through 2 weeks. Trey Freeman, I thought, had a solid game. VJ Anthony had moments where you were like, hey, NFL scouts up there in the booth. Oh, look at this guy. Number 7's doing his thing. But the defense is going to have to try to force their hand and get the ball back to this offense. I think that's going to be a key part of what Duke does. And it has been for years, that defense.
And it just seemed like a lot of I agree with you. I think this is a really good football team, and they're going to be kicking themselves when they watch the tape, and they already have, I'm sure. But the defense did enough, but then didn't. Like the first half, 4 sacks in the first half, 7 or 8 tackles for loss, and then no sacks in the second half. Only a handful of tackles for loss in the second half. And as you mentioned, no turnovers forced. When you're offensively and special teams doing all those things bad, you've got to have relief somewhere. And they didn't. And that was the combined effort. That was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. And next up is Tulane. So more than anything, the mental's got to be there for your quarterback, Darian Mensah, next week. And you've got to have his back as he returns to play his team that he transferred from. Because those guys are going to be gunning for QB1 there at Duke. Let's switch gears to the state of Texas, because a big bragging rights game, another old school Southwest Conference rivalry in SMU and Baylor, another high scoring affair that I hope you took the over for. Needed 2 overtimes to get it done. Unfortunately, a missed field goal at the end of it was the difference between SMU coming out with a win versus a loss to the Bears. That is now 14 straight losses to Baylor, which sometimes just a team has your number, and that is the way that it is. And I don't want to just put it on the kicker, but he did miss 2 field goals, very important field goals in that game, because every point obviously mattered, because there were other things leading up to it. But ultimately that was the difference in overtime, not being able to kick one of those field goals. What did you take away from SMU's loss in a very high scoring 40?
Yeah, it was, again, just kind of a game of unfortunate circumstances, because it was really fun, and SMU jumped out. I mean, they got up really big and, scored in a hurry, and then the second quarter is just back and forth. I mean, I'm looking at this play chart: touchdown Baylor, touchdown SMU, touchdown Baylor, touchdown SMU, touchdown Baylor, end of half. And that was fun. And we're flying up and down the field, and it's a really exciting game. And it's a 6-point game or whatever it was, 3-point game, at halftime. And then, again, somehow, and Kevin Jennings played lights out. I think it was perfect in the first half, like 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and was perfect, 10 of 10, which is incredible. And you wonder, is it sustainable? What was also interesting, Baylor had like 50 plays in the first half. I mean, they were moving and a lot of time of possession and kind of wearing down that defense and things of that nature. And you wonder, how much does that affect? How much does that have to do? And then SMU's up 2 scores with like 6 minutes left. And we're like, this is over. This is great. We feel fantastic. Here we go. And they just couldn't capitalize on it. They scored a touchdown. Baylor, I think, fumbled. They scored another touchdown. You're like, here we go. Like, this is huge. Big momentum. It's 38-24. Let's finish the game. And they couldn't. They go out, 5 plays, punt. They go out, miss a field goal. And it's just, frustrating to see not being able to close the door and to have kind of the miscues that you did. Like, KJ played really good in the first half, and then he didn't play bad, but it was just some confusing things that kind of made you like, we could have just done this and we would have been okay.
Yeah, like, you're our veteran guy. You are our leader. You've been through this last year. I expect him to be the steady Eddie, and there were times in that game he had another questionable interception. There are times in that game where I'm like, all right, KJ, we know you're better than that. So be better than that, because in a big game like this, you have to be. And I was listening to Rhett Lashley's post game, and there will be things to learn from. And keep in mind, if you look back at last year, they lost to 3 points to BYU early in the season, didn't lose again after that, made it to the college football playoff. This isn't the end of the world. Would have been very nice to have. He reiterated the point that this isn't last year's team. They have 42 new players of their 85. Very young team, especially defensively, a lot of new pieces. They have to learn how to finish ball games. And I think that's what you kind of saw come to fruition in this one. Like, it was toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
Baylor had a little bit more experience. They have a quarterback in Sawyer Robertson, who once again threw for over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. They just finished, and they scored a couple more points than SMU did. Like Rhett said in his post-game press conference, like, you hate to say it, but this is when you really find out who your friends are, and if you can rally around together, come back next week and do it again and come out on the winning end of it. But I think that they will, and they'll learn a lot more from this loss than, like Rhett said, maybe they would in a win.
Yeah.
So there is the positive to look at there, but certainly some things to clean up, and closing the door when you have the lead is so important.
Right. And I mean, you give Baylor credit. I mean, they were dealing on offense. This might be the best offense in the Big 12 and maybe one of the best in the country that has a really good quarterback that is now going back to last season, thrown for 400-yard games in a row. They have explosive nature. And if you look at this SMU team a year ago, the biggest weakness was corner. And maybe that's still the case this year. And will they play as good of passing attacks as they did or as good as offenses as they did? Maybe a couple. But how do you learn from it? How do you step up? A lot of opportunity out there for you to kind of glean and gather from there. But you just wish, you wish you take that step, you make it happen. And how differently do we kind of feel, about them? I think another team, that was a little bit unfortunate, obviously Virginia Tech, and we've got to go. So I'm not going to talk too much about them, but I think it's not getting warm. It's very hot in Blacksburg. And it's unfortunate, because we have such a great relationship with these coaches. And there's not a coach that I sit here and say, I don't like that guy. We like them all. We have great relationships with them all, but this is a business and this is a multi-billion-dollar business. And Virginia Tech, TT, as you know, is one of the most electric fan bases in college football. And they show up, show out, and are always there. And they have had literally nothing to cheer about for a decade, it feels like. And it's just, how do you keep showing up? But they do, and they keep supporting it. And so something has to give them energy. Something has to give them life. This team has had NFL prospects. They had a ton of NFL prospects last year. They weren't able to do anything. They make changes. We thought the defense was going to get better, but I think and they haven't really. I think the most glaring thing to me was the 2 second halves of the 2 games we've seen them play. They've been outscored 48-3. They got blanked by Vandy. That's coaching. That's lack of or wrong adjustments, and you're paying for it heavily. To lose by 24 at home in a sold-out crowd is devastating, and I think a relative nail in the coffin. So we'll see what happens there. I think that was super unfortunate.
I'm disappointed.
It stinks.
I'm really disappointed. I expected more at halftime. That was a game I felt good about. And you're up 20-10. You are dominating time of possession, most importantly, keeping the ball out of Diego Pavia's hands. You doubled up their time of possession in the first half, completely flipped in the second. There's just no excuse. And we love Kyron Drones, big fans of him. It's not all on your QB, but I know he's better than that. And I know this team is better than that. And I think that's what's so frustrating is it's there, but where is it? It's hiding around a corner.
So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I do want to give a little shout out to Boston College. Thought they played out of their minds, lost, but played out of their minds. That's going to be a team nobody wants to play, right, TT?
Dylan Lonergan, sorry we were not familiar with your game. Young quarterback transfer from Alabama, Bill O'Brien. There is a reason. After a quarterback battle, he was named the starting quarterback. I am bullish on Boston College. If I'm playing them in the ACC later in the season, no thank you, especially in Chestnut Hill as you get into, late October, November. No thanks.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. We got to go. That was your first show. How was it? It was super fast.
I think it was fun. We could do this forever.
Let's do it. We're going to. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks for doing this with me. It's going to be a fun ride, and I cannot wait to bring you guys even more all year. We'll be back Wednesday and then Friday, as you know. So if you're still here with us, go subscribe, jump into the channel, leave some comments, say hey to Taylor. Let's go, everybody. It's going to be a fun ride. We appreciate you guys so much. Until next time, we'll see y'all.